This is segment 3 of homework 4. So we are dealing with a situation where we have an amplitude, of course, a K, and a phase shift. So stuff like this: A sine of K times X minus B. Now you have to write it like that in order to identify these different things. A cosine of K times X minus B. So A is the amplitude, K tells you what the period is, and B is the phase shift. And these frames that you use in order to write a basic shape of the curve. In the previous problem, there was no phase shift involved. Therefore, we always did it from 0 to the period. But here, there's a phase shift involved. So the convention, at least in this book, is to do it between B is the phase shift and the period. Okay, so let's identify these problems. If you look at problem number 30, okay, this is 30, this one. The amplitude is 2. Amplitude is always a positive number. Okay, the K is 1, and that means the period is equal to 2 pi over K, which is 2 pi. And the phase shift is pi over 3. B is equal to pi over 3. So if I wanted to graph this, here's what I'm going to do. I go between pi over 3, say this is pi over 3, okay, and pi over 3 plus 2 pi, pi over 3 plus 2 pi. So let me actually make this thing, pi over 3, and then probably pi is going to be here 3 times, and 2 pi is going to be there. So this is going to be 2 pi plus pi over 3. Okay, so this is one cycle, the one cycle of the curve, of the sine curve. This was sine, right? It was sine, is going to be fit in there. Let's ignore the fact that the amplitude is 2. So I've got to take the sine curve and stick it in there, like this. Okay? But because we are dealing with 2 sine of etc., we have to stretch this thing in the vertical direction by a factor of 2. Notice that right here. See this? There's a 2 there. So we're going to try to do this here. So this other curve, which is going to go like that. Stretch everything by a factor of 2, like this. Okay. So this is going to be height of 2, and this is going to be height of minus 2, and then this thing repeats itself according to that pattern. All right, etc. Okay, so this black curve is the graph of 2 sine of x minus pi. All right, so that takes care of this black one. Let's clean this up. We're going to do to 32. We're going to do 32. I don't want to make noise there, screeching noise, so let's get rid of all of this. Okay, So what are we doing? This is our problem. This one. Erase this. Okay. Alright. This is our problem. So the amplitude is 3. The factor k in front of that parentheses is 1. Okay, remember it was also 1 here. That's why it didn't matter. This is 1. And notice that b is minus pi over 4. Because if you look at this format, it is x minus b. So if it's x plus pi over 4, minus b is pi over 4, or b is minus pi over 4. Okay, so first of all, the period is 2 pi over k, that's 2 pi. So that interval where we draw one cycle is going to be minus pi over 4 to minus 2 minus pi over 4 plus 2 pi. Okay, so let's try to do a good job here. Let me draw my axis. First, I'm going to ignore this amplitude. Pretend the amplitude is 1. So this goes from 1 to minus 1. So we start at minus pi over 4. So let's see now. If this is, for just hypothetically, if this is minus pi over 4, minus pi over 4 plus 2 pi will put us to this location. This is minus pi over 4 plus 2 pi. Notice that there is 4 of these pi over 4 segments there. Okay, so I have to take a cycle of cosine which starts here and it ends there and stick it in that interval. Okay, when I say in that interval, means in this interval that you see here. So let me move this one a little bit to the right so that it won't interfere with my drawing. Alright, so it starts here. Cosine, the cycle of cosine goes like this. Oops, shouldn't go beyond minus 1. And then it goes, this is minus 1, then it goes to 0, and then it goes to 1. I'm going to clean this up because this kind of is ambiguous what's going on here. Here's what happened. There's minus 1, there's 1. So we have to fit a cosine. Cosine looks like that in one period. We start at minus pi over 4, and it goes by minus pi over 4 plus 2 pi. It goes one period, 4 of these, one period, 2 pi. Okay? Oh, I made a mistake here. Let me see. Pi over 4. Oh no, it's okay. It's alright. This whole thing should be 2 pi. Is it 2 pi? No, that's wrong. Alright, it's good. We made a mistake here. Let's go back and clean it up. This drawing is not correct. This drawing down here is not correct. And that's okay. We make mistakes. We're going to have to go and clean it up. Okay. Let's clean this up. Everything here is okay, but the graph was not right because I did not pay attention to the fact that it was a pi over 4. Okay, so let's for a second see. Let's say that this is minus pi over 4. This location is minus pi over 4. I want to add 2 pi to it. Now, what does that mean? 2 pi to it means 8 of these intervals. So 1, 2, this is 3, 4. So this is 3 pi over 4, right? And then 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is minus pi over 4 plus 2 pi, which is 7 pi over 4. From here to there must be 2 pi. And in my original drawing that I did a minute ago, that was not the case. Okay? So, what about the amplitude? Right now, we're ignoring this amplitude 3. We're doing it between 1 and minus 1. So, we're trying to take a cosine and fit it in there. Okay? Cosine that starts here at minus 1 and plus 1, and it ends up at plus 1, and we have to fit it in there. So, this is the midpoint, by the way. This is the midpoint, right? So, when you do that, it goes like this. Yeah. Right there. Okay? This graph, this curve, this red one is cosine of x plus pi over 4. Now we have to multiply it by 3 because the amplitude is 3. So let's go ahead and do a cleanup here. We're going to clean this up. Remove this. Okay. You have to stretch all of these by a factor of 3. So was it 3 or yeah 3? So if this was 1, this is going to be 2, and this is going to be 3, and this is minus 1, and this is minus 2, and this is minus 3. So I have to take this guy and stretch it in the vertical direction. Let me do it with a different color. So this, it has to go to 0 there, and it has to go to minus 3 over here, and it has to go to 0 at that location, and then it has to go to 3 right up there. Can you visualize this? And it repeats. And that takes care of it. It goes between plus 3 and minus 3 because the amplitude is 3. The period, as you can see, is 2 pi, and it's the regular cosine curve rectangle shifted to the left. It's shifted to the left by that shift value of pi over 4. Okay, let's worry about this fellow now. I have to do some cleanup here, so let's do a cleanup. Get rid of this, and that, and that, and that. Get rid of all of these. What you should do after you do this problem manually, you should go and plot it with your calculator, and they have to match. Otherwise, in all likelihood, you made a mistake here, or you didn't input it correctly in your calculator, which is also possible. You may have done it correctly here, but carelessly something in the calculator went wrong. So not every problem I do it with the calculator, but in the class I've tried some of these, and if you have any question, come and see me, please, and we're going to go through it. Okay, well, let's do this. Identify different things. For example, amplitude is 1. That's good because it's the one that's multiplied by sine. K is 1/2, and that immediately tells you that period is equal to 2 pi over k, which is 4 pi. Okay, that's good. And the phase shift is negative of that, negative of pi over 4. I want to remind you that because this is plus b and the standard format says x minus b, so the minus b is your pi over 4 and b is negative of pi over 4. So let's do a quick sketch here. We may have to clean this up. X, okay, this is x, yeah. So the interval that we're going to plot things is going to be from minus pi over 4 to 4 pi. Man, this is going to be a lot of, so let me put a minus pi over 4 here. Okay, and if you want to go to 4 pi, which means we have to have, if we want to go a length of 4 pi, we need to have 16 of these. Okay, so let's be careful. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. No, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Okay, let me erase this X for you. It doesn't serve any function. Alright, now the amplitude is 1, so it goes between 1 and -1. So this is +1 and this is -1. And what you see here is your minus pi over 4 plus 4 pi, which incidentally it means 15 pi over 4. Okay, we have to take one of these sine curves and fit it in there. So where's the middle point, by the way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the middle point. So the curve starts here. This is the middle point. The curve starts there, goes up, and goes to 0, and then goes down somewhere in the middle, exactly in the middle, and goes like that. Okay? And then, of course, it repeats itself. I don't have room to do it on the right side. All right, let's do the next one. Let's get through this and that. Let me get through these. Okay, I'll get through this. Okay, number 36. All right, what do we know about the amplitude? Amplitude is 2, is this number. Now, this thing, you have to massage it so that it looks like that. So I'm going to take 2 over 3 x minus pi over 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the, for example, 2 over 3 out. Or, yeah, 2 over 3 out. So it's going to be x minus. Now we've got to be careful here. Whatever we put there should, after you multiply by 2 over 3, should become a pi over 6. So I put a pi here. Okay. And I need a, let's see now. As I said, whatever you put in there, when you multiply by 2/3, you should get minus pi over 6. So let's not be very brave here. So let's do pi over 6 equal to 2/3 times what number here? And that number becomes pi over 4 over here. Okay, so notice that if you take 2 over 3 and multiply pi over 4, you're going to get your pi over 6. That means your b is actually pi over 4. Yeah, your b is actually your pi over 4. Sometimes it's not obvious. You have to do the algebra to work it out. It's not hard, but you just have to do it. Okay. So now it looks in the form that you have here. Okay. So first I'm gonna oh, by the way, the period. What was the value of k? K was 2/3, right? K was 2/3. I erased it, but it was 2/3. So if you put it in there, you're gonna get 2 pi over 2/3, and that's gonna be 3 pi, I believe. Yeah, 3 pi. 3 pi. Okay. 3 pi. Good. So the interval that we're going to plot this thing is going to be pi over 4 plus, comma, pi over 4 plus 3 pi, which incidentally is 13 pi over 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. First, a quick, ugly sketch. Never mind about the amplitude of 2. for now. Let's say that the amplitude is 1, between 1 and -1. Okay, and it goes between pi over 4. So if I make each one of these, each one of these pi over 4, if this is pi over 4, I have to go 13 of these to the right to end up at the end point. So this is pi over 4, and then 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So I should have 13 of these. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Very good. And this is a sine curve, so things start right here and it ends up there. So in the middle point, I don't know where the middle point is, whatever it is, somewhere here. I'll let you work it out exactly if you want. So the curve goes up, it goes down, and then it goes there. Okay? Now we have to stretch this thing in the vertical direction by a factor of 2. So you start here, it goes 2, and it goes down to -2. So this is -2, and this is 2, and then it repeats itself. Okay? Look, these graphs are important to be done manually. However, you should have an idea of how it's going to look like, but in many problems, because we have mastered it, then we just go to a calculator and do it. Let's do this last one. I'm going to erase all this junk. I'll leave these things here. Let's get rid of these. Okay, we're going to get rid of this and that. All right, first of all, just like the problem above it, this is not in the right format. So what I will do, I will take the 3 out, and I'm going to write this thing as x plus pi over 6. That means k is 3, and b is minus pi over 6, and of course the amplitude is 1. Once I draw that, then I shift everything up by 1 unit because of that one. So for now, I'm just going to do this. Y equal to cosine of this thing. Okay? Right. So let me erase these things. Oops. Erase these. Okay. So what's the period? Let's find the period. Period is equal to 2 pi over 3. Okay? Incidentally, 2 pi over 3 means for your information, it is 4 times pi over 6. This is going to help us to actually find out where the start and end points are. Okay, so b is minus pi over 6, right? Right here. Do this. So b is minus pi over 6. So if minus pi over 6 is over there, and then I have to go to 2 pi over 3, and I just told you that 2 pi over 3 is 4 of these. So I go there, and there, and there, and this is going to be 2 pi over 3. Just a second. This is the period. So yeah, that's right. So the question is, hang in there. This we have to be very careful here. We start as minus pi over 6, and we have to go. This is right. This is wrong. We have to go to minus pi over 6 plus the period, 2 pi over 3. So what is this? This is 11. Sorry, it's 8 pi over 3, right? 2 pi over 3, the common denominator is 6. Is that right? Is that correct? Let me see now. Hang in there. This is not right. Not 8. So it's going to be 3 pi over 6 to pi over 2. Okay? So minus pi over 6 plus 2 pi over 3 is going to be pi over 2. So this is not correct. This place, this location, is simply pi over 2. Okay? And it's this distance is 2 pi over 3. Believe it or not, if you take pi over 2 and subtract it from that, subtract it from pi over 6, let me do it on the side for you. Pi over 2 minus pi over 6, let me see. Let me get rid of the stuff. Pi over 2 minus pi over 6, it better be 2 pi over 3, and it is. I suggest you work it out. So let's take the cosine and fit it in there. The amplitude is 1 right there. So we take the starts here, ends there. So obviously the middle is right there. So the curve is going to go like that. Okay. Get rid of this. Clear it up. Right here. In the middle, it goes to minus 1. It starts at plus 1 and goes to minus 1. Now this is not the final answer, because we have to shift it up by 1 unit. So let's go ahead. I'm going to use a different color. Shift everything up by 1 unit. So it's going to look like that. There. And then it repeats. Okay, folks. So I'm sorry. These things, there's no fast way around it. If you put it in your calculator, of course, it's one thing. But the intention is not to put everything in your calculator. You should be able to do these things manually too. All right. So that takes care of this problem. I'm going to stop the video, and the fourth one we're going to do with these remaining problems.